Good morning. How's everyone doing this morning?
Morning.
Beautiful day, beautiful weather outside. Thank you for attending today's meeting. I'd like to call the meeting of the Building and Grounds Committee to order, and we're going to begin with roll call.
Ms. Parker?
Present.
Mr. Hunter?
Present.
Mr. Hess? Mr. Tholen? Mr. Seroy? Mr. Dunnell?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
Ms. Armour Earps?
Present.
Mr. Ashcraft? Ms. Monday?
Present.
Mr. Scanlon? Mr. Wheeler? Mr. Alexander Hildebrand?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Looking around, do we have any public comments this morning?
Like your hair do today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the public comment. No public comments? Okay, bless his heart. Okay, we're going to move on then to the approval of minutes from the May 11th meeting. Mr. Smith, motion, and then second by Ms. Armour Earps. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, all approved. Now I'd like to ask permission of the committee if we could move up number 6, old business, to where, before presentation.
Second.
Mr. Hunter, and then by Mr. Dunnell. I was going to call you Aaron. Okay, all those in favor of moving 6 up, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, nay. Okay, this is an update on the animal control building and cost. We had the bids go out, as you know, and it came back a little bit. There was some that only had one bid, and some of them were a little bit high. And we need to talk about, we need to get more money. It's going to be $2 million more for the animal control building to be completed. And right now, that does not include 2.7 actually. That does not include the land and the building. So what we need to talk about then, we're going to have the bids come back, and Andy, when are those bids coming back? The 16th?
Turn him on.
16. Oh,
Correct, yeah, the bids are back the day before finance, so they'll be opened at the finance committee meeting.
okay. They'll be open at finance committee meeting.
Yeah, it's already been published. All of the items that were rejected in the committee meeting were part of the new bid. I had that verified, so everything is completely in order with both the process and the actual current bidding that's out there right now.
Okay.
So we cast a wide net on those bids to make sure. The other thing is that in essence, these aren't the same bids because we are moving the construction timeline out. We have found that all of the contractors are stacked up with work in the time frame that we wanted the work done, and it most likely had a very negative impact on the cost of the bids because the timing was off. So we feel that, you know, if the committee that's why it's an agenda item, if the committee wants to go forward and still, you know, do this project under the, you know, the not to exceed number that finance will consider later in the month when the bids come in, because that's where we're at. We have a not to exceed number. If we want to continue out of here saying, yes, we still need an animal control facility, you know, that's what you're being asked, or do you just want to stop this project altogether? And it's the right thing to do. They asked the question, but it's maybe not the right thing to do to stop. So I'll let the committee kind of consider that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hunter?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Andy, how many packets were picked up, or who would know how many packets were picked up? Because the concern we had, Vice Chairman of the board, on our way up, we're talking about, and I know Colton was concerned, and a lot of other people were concerned about money going up I-57 and not staying within the county. Does anybody know how many packets were picked up? I do not. Does anybody know?
I don't know exactly how many packets were picked up, but I was at the contractor walkthrough, and if I had to guess, I have the list up in my office, I'd say there's probably more than 50 that were there from various areas. Yes, there was some folks from up north. There were several from the area here. I know Precision Piping was there. I believe Glady was there. Reuter Electric was there. So there was local representation at the last walkthrough. So I can speak to that. But if you want to look at it more in depth, I've got the list up in my office.
And to piggyback on what Chairman Wheeler indicated, I don't think there's any readiness to stop the project, and we put too much effort in terms of the facility. I think we've been quite progressive and pragmatic, and that's something we need. And I'm speaking for myself, I don't presume to speak for anybody else, that we must proceed with the project.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Monday?
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. I maybe haven't had enough coffee, but I'm a little bit confused. So just, if you could just reiterate. You said the bids that came in.
Right.
And we're 2.7 million over what we had projected? Is that what?
No. Mr. Chairman.
I've got it all here. We had roughly $2.77 million allocated above the land purchase and the building
Right.
cost for the construction.
Right.
The bids came back, and that was 4.7.
4.7.
That amount became 4.7. Materials, labor, everything. So the question was, and we've asked these in other side, private small group conversations, that is our prices going to go down on materials? Is labor going to go down on materials? Right. I didn't want to get into a big financial discussion here, but it is, all things being equal, if we found the money and it was from an acceptable source, would this committee recommend going forward? Or would you want to see it just, we don't want to spend that kind of money on the building, and that's what our recommendation is. You see what we have to talk about that. Yeah.
And the bid. Yes.
Two-part question. Second part of the question is, so we're rebidding the entire thing?
No.
No, just the things that we originally asked for bids on.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Right. I don't know, it was in the paper. The bid was pretty large, so things that we're bidding on was published in the paper. Mm-hmm. If you like to see there. There wasn't, we had a lot of bids come in, but some of them only one, and some were a little bit ridiculous in price. So they went out again for rebidding. So we're going to go through that on finance, and that will be in about a week and a half. Mr. Smith, number 9.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm curious about where the other funds might come from, and maybe looking at some of our other options. We can get started on the building. Mm-hmm. Just stopping the build is absolutely not an option, in my opinion. But at the same time, bids coming in this time of year from anywhere, in my opinion, are going to be a little bit higher because of the workload that everyone is shouldering. And if we were able to get started on the building and have new bids come out for later in the year, maybe when work is starting to slow down, if that might give us a break. I'm not quite sure how this would work out, but it would allow us to get going on some things while putting off other things, and then look for sources of income to pay for this, because we don't want it to be taxpayer money.
No, you're right. Mr. Chairman, did you have?
Just that's exactly what's happening. Mm-hmm. When the bids have gone back out, it's for a construction season that's later in the year. We can't bid it for November if the work is supposed to start in November. So that's exactly what we're doing. Now, the financial on how it's going to be paid for is a decision by the Finance Committee.
Exactly.
So we're looking to see if you want to move forward, if all things being equal, if the money's right, does this committee want to move forward?
Amanda?
Ms. Erbs?
Yes, thank you. How many different tiers of a building do we have? I mean, do we just have one plan, or do we have multiple plans, or scale down based on our size of our county? I mean, like, I'm sure there's a lot of thought put into this, but just curious of how many different tiers of construction we have, or we have just one plan.
As far as from what I've seen, there's been a couple different designs, but we've settled on one plan, and I think
Right.
Andy can probably speak a little bit more to that.
Yes, the design plan, it went through many iterations,
Right.
and the final construction drawings will be produced from the last version of the plan. That included, this has been around and around and around for a couple years, but
Right.
How do I put this? The scope of the project is such that the bids are out right now on those drawings, and the plan, the design of the building won't change.
Right.
It was made with the veterinarian and the leadership of animal control and the design builders in consultation with what laws and regulations were bound with, and also the Village of Bourbonnais code. So there's a little bit of things that are going on as far as the building code that we're changing, tweaks here, there, water fountains that they need to see in certain places, but what you see is what it is going to be. So I say we can't change that now. When we bid it the first time, we bid it with lower cost alternatives, and the cost savings was roughly $200,000 over the 4.7 million. Things like a generator and a pad were $100,000. So we said, let's just include everything. We've already got cost overruns. The recommendation will be that we use ARPA money for the other $2 million, which is not local taxpayer taxes based on property taxes. It's money that came back from the feds that we usually never see. But that's what we'll talk about in finance.
Right.
The design, though, has gone through many iterations, and the bid process tried to flesh out cost savings that just did not materialize.
Right.
They think the major cost savings, meaning the construction industry, the architect, the construction manager, and the industry, say bid it later in the year, because that's when our time frees up. People are just throwing big numbers on stuff right now, to Ken's point.
It's quite a process that they went through with the architects of designing it with the veterinarians and the village, because there's special materials that needed to be for safety inside of the animal control building, such as concrete on the floor. They had to be a special type because of waste or whatever, so everything would then not be a bacteria magnet there. So it's a lot of special things went into it, a little bit different than just building a building. Okay. Any other discussion? How you feel about your thoughts on moving forward with the animal control building. Mr. Hunter.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Move to proceed.
Move to proceed.
Second.
Do we need a motion on this, Mr. Wheeler?
It would help, just so finance knows it's recommended.
Okay, fine. Then Mr. Hunter has made a motion then to proceed with the animal control building as presented, and seconded by Ms. Monday. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, say no. Excellent. We'll take that then to Finance Committee, and hopefully our Director of Finance will start looking underneath couch cushions to find some extra money for animal control, because I sure would like to see this completed. This is a big thing. Okay. Let's see. We're moving then to on old business as well. The chairman has been working with the state's attorney and the judge on working on the new juvenile diversion initiative, and that would be for $6 million. Is that correct, Mr. Wheeler?
Yes, I just to tell the committee, it's the start of the process. We had talked about this, I don't know, in different forms, but through the budget process, we were able to receive $6 million from the state for a court's solution to the juvenile issue / courthouse congestion. Mainly what we're looking to do is to, and this is really something that the Chief Judge and Mr. Rowe have pushed forward, and so a lot of the design, if you will come from them. Obviously, this is courts related. We're just the people that build, and then in this case fund, the taxpayers fund the things we're talking about. But in general, it's those people that are brushing up against the criminal justice system, so they don't become frequent visitors at Club Downey, which is very expensive for the taxpayers. We'd rather get them away from that, and the state agrees. Asked for 12, got 6. I appreciate it. Thanks. So we'll see what that gets us, and that process has already started. We had talked about this as part of something White, who designs and builds courthouses, will help us on the design side of things on what that would look like and how far we could push the $6 million to provide not only the setting for these trials or interactions with youth, but also the wraparound services that allow them hopefully never to be seen by us again in that context. So more to come. I just want to let the committee know, and you'll be very involved in that as we get more options on what our money buys these days. As we just heard, not as much as it did 2 or 3 years ago when they gave us COVID money.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I like the initiative. It's admirable that the state's attorney and the judges putting a lot of thought into this. It's really needed, especially in this community these days.
Thanks, Senator Joyce, for his help.
We will.
The key that I want to mention is that it's much cheaper not to see them again, and so I keep mentioning this to people. That's why people in Manteno and Moments and in Herscher should care about these types of things, because their taxes support the public the criminal justice system. They're paying for state's attorneys and public defenders and those things. So in order for us to address those costs, we have to keep people out of the system. And
Absolutely.
it's much cheaper to catch them now than it is later. So if you're worried about the money, that's part of why we're doing this. The other side is the human cost.
Yes, it's an investment in youth, especially in juveniles. Any comments on the initiative? Okay, update. Now, are we ready to move on to, we have no presentations today, so it's time for Mr.
Am I up?
Andrews. You're
All right.
up, bud.
Okay, facility dude report for last month, 148 work orders in the system, so a pretty typical month from that aspect. The financial report that you have in front of you there, you can see year to date for fiscal year 23, we're at 544. Last year at this time we were at 613, so obviously a little behind where we were at this point last year. But if you recall, a lot of that number is in 87,510, which is the building improvements that we did last year with the notion of paying with those with ARPA funding. So that's pretty much the only difference on the financial report. There is one typo. 54,600 on there should be 56,400. Not a big deal. $2,500 that needs to be reallocated to a different line item. So, any questions on the financial report? All right, if there's no questions on that, we'll move on to the building report. Worth noting on animal control, the contractor walkthrough is today. So as soon as I get done here, I'm gonna head over there and do that. So. Here at 189 fire drill, Anita and I had been meeting with Kankakee City Fire to get a fire drill scheduled here for this building. So in preparation for that, I met with the fire department earlier this week to look through our evacuation plan here for the building. They liked it, said it's an excellent plan, and recommended us to continue using it. So with that in mind, Anita and I met with the other department heads in the building yesterday and went through our plan kind of to update everyone on it. It's quite dated. It's been around for several years, but wanted to give everybody a little refresher on that. The fire drill is going to be scheduled for July 27th at 9 a.m. and we're going to make sure we get proper notice out to the public via social media, signage on the building, etc., to let everyone know that we're going to be having a fire drill on that date and time. So I guess to the emergency preparedness point, so far this year, like I said, we have fire drill scheduled. We discussed our tornado plan yesterday in our meeting as well. We've done active shooter preparation and presentations over the last 6 months. We've also done AED training here in the building over the last 2 months. So I think from an emergency preparedness perspective, I think we're in as good a spot as we've been during my tenure here. So happy to report that. The fourth floor for this room and next door for the auditor, we lost a compressor on our HVAC unit. It was a couple weeks ago. I believe it might have been down for 1 or 2 meetings. So if it was a little warmer in here than it should have been, that was why. The compressor has since been replaced, but like I said, a common theme. I mean, every air handler we have in this building, I bet, is 10 years plus. So I mean, compressors and issues are the norm this time of year. We had a couple plumbing issues in the building, and anytime we have a plumbing issue in this building, there are no water shutoffs at the sites. So as that comes up, we try to add them. So there's a little more expense involved with ordinary plumbing repair when you don't have a water shutoff. So I've been trying to add those at various toilets and sinks throughout the building. So that's something that we continue to work through. Over at the courthouse, basement update, Delta Controls, I'm still waiting on them to finish. They handle our HVAC systems at the courthouse. I'm waiting on them to finish things. They owe us 1 thermostat that I'm told will be here tomorrow. And then the updating of my software system with all the new HVAC components in the basement at the courthouse.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
I was just clearing my throat.
Okay. Sandy's furniture is due in tomorrow. It's being delivered tomorrow, and it'll start assembly. I assume it's going to take a couple days to get everything assembled and put in place. So happy to report on that. Let's see. Jury assembly occupancy. I met with the fire department on our occupancy and jury assembly. We're right where we need to be, so happy to report on that. The East HVAC unit that we've discussed here at this committee for years is still giving me headaches. We replaced a compressor on it last year. The compressor went out again this year. The contractor honored the warranty on it, replaced the compressor for us, and we're still having issues with that unit. So probably have a report or update on that for you next month. We have a tree that's going to be removed on the north lawn at the courthouse. If anyone's seen it, it's right out there, right on 17. It's in bad shape. So that's something over the next couple weeks that's going to have to come down. It's dead, and it needs to come down. So working on that. I've been working with Sandy and Doug Bright on design. I guess we've kind of been calling that phase 2, if you will, or phase 3 or 4 probably was would better characterize that. But Sandy and Doug have been working through that on space design in her area. Other than that, I just did a walkthrough at the courthouse yesterday. The floors look good. The basement looks great. I wish the grass looked a little better, but that is what it is. But other than that, the place is in really good shape. Annex and Old Jail. The annex unit is running. We've been operating it manually. We're still waiting on Carrier to come out and inspect the unit. So in that time, what we're waiting for is our control system company wants to meet with Carrier for the official startup of the unit, and they want to talk to them about where they can place their controls in order to not void the warranty. So while we're waiting for all this to happen, maintenance, we have to turn the unit on and off manually every day, which is kind of a pain in the butt. So in the mornings when we get here early, that's not much of an issue, but a lot of my maintenance staff go home at 2:30. So I've had our courier who's here till 4:30. He stops by and shuts the unit off every day. So we're making it work. It's a little cumbersome, but that's where we stand on that. Let's see. Other than that, at the old jail, I need to order more door motors. They're about $5,000 each. Those are the gate motors that open the old cells over there. Every time one of those goes down, it's about $5,000 for a new door motor, which is obviously costly. I have to order one, and then I usually like to have one in stock. That way, if one does go out, we have a backup. Other than that, just a bunch of plumbing repairs at the old jail, which is typical. Out at JCDC, public safety in the morgue unit, as Coroner Gessner reported the other day in criminal justice, is up and running. Similarly to the annex, we're just waiting to finalize the controls, and that's Delta. So we're waiting on them as well to finalize things out there. I think we've talked at the committee. We've done a lot of flooring out at JCDC, some carpet squares in master control and in medical. So medical is all done. Looks really good. The sheriff actually sent me a text yesterday letting me know how wonderful the floors look in the jail, so that was much appreciated. And obviously kudos to the staff out there in getting that done. Lots of plumbing related repairs, showers and such. Annual sprinkler inspection was earlier this week, so that's been handled. And then we've talked at the committee about the hot water storage tank. I just sent an email to the contractor on that this morning asking for an update, and I'm waiting on that. It should be in any day. So that's all I got. Are there any questions?
I have a question. My first question is, how's the showers coming along in the jail?
The painting of them, we're still waiting on that. I'm working with corrections and getting a plan together, and I'll most likely follow up with Chief Kalawenzu later this week or the first part of next, because everyone has to be moved, and I think they're trying to figure out what the best way to do that is and where they're going to go and the timing of everything. So it's going to be clumsy when it happens, and I think it's just taken a little longer than expected to kind of get everything planned.
Great.
So.
And the other question I have is, at the last meeting we talked about the courthouse ADA project. How's that coming along? Do you think it might be done by the fall?
The Sandy's office area?
The whole ADA.
Well, most of the ADA stuff has since been repaired or taken care of. So that was courtroom 204. That was done a couple years ago. That was the ramp. That was a lot of the stuff we just completed in the basement. And then the next phase would be Sandy's office area. And then once that is done, and maybe Chairman Wheeler can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're complete from a ADA perspective.
Then? Okay. So
is that accurate, Andy? He hits his.
Oh, sorry.
We're in what's called a transition plan on how to go from buildings that are not ADA compliant to ADA compliant. So we're never done on a 100-year-old building, but the major dates, certain things that the state was threatening to take over the county's budget and fix, that was actually real. That was happening. So that stuff is taken care of. So we don't have, say, the wolf at the door anymore. We're taking care of the things that we need to as money permits and as the public deserves to have available to them.
Absolutely.
You know? So again, we won't do everything, but there's things in this building we need to address. There's things, health department we probably have to address. There's got to be something in old buildings, you know?
Of course. So then will we be ready then to show the public everything that has been done with the courthouse?
We're shooting for September.
For September?
And that depends on when this last part he's talking about, Sandy's office.
Right. I mean, that's something I think that we should show off and be proud of, and I think that they will be surprised at what they're going to see.
You sound like Dr. Polk, because we talk about that every month. When are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? Especially with the ADA stuff. She obviously has a horse in that race, and so we have a board member who cares about those issues as the rest of the board does.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember when the Attorney General and ADA became an issue years ago. So it's going to be nice to say that we have completed that project.
Yeah, we've certainly come a long way.
Yes, we have. Thank you. Oh,
Just real quick,
Mr. Hunter.
The fire drill thing made me think, should we have one at 8:30 before an upcoming board meeting? Just so this room knows what to do in a drill? Have you guys talked about that?
We have not discussed it, but it's a valid
just like
point.
8:30, we take 15 minutes while everybody's here so they know what to do. We probably should do that, especially with active shooter stuff too. We could probably remind people what those protocols are. as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can talk to you about that
Yeah.
in a little
Would the
bit.
committee find a value of that if we?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
'Cause
Just
that's
to
the-
know, just to know.
That's the
Where do
day
you
of the
go?
executive meeting, so that would be valuable for them to know.
Yeah, all board members.
All board members. Okay, Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. How many employees do we have at 189? Does anybody know?
Anita, do you know how many people we have in the building?
She said there wasn't gonna be a test.
It was about, the last I counted was about 60.
Yeah, I would guess 50. So
Okay,
I
now
guess I would
where's
throw-
the staging area of for the fire drill, and what do we do in terms of people in wheelchairs?
So the staging area is going to be along the fence by the railroad. So next time you're looking and when you walk out, you'll see numbers on the fence. So there's numbers 1 through 6, which correspond to the various floors in the building. So when you evacuate, you go over there and you're going to congregate by the number of the floor that you're on. And that's how that would go. And we talked at the meeting yesterday. We have people assigned in each department, and then we have someone assigned to the holding area as well when everyone is out of the building to check with all the department heads and then relay that information to the fire department. So getting out of the building, yes, that way. As far as wheelchair, that is something that obviously the elevator is frowned upon for use during a event such as that. And that's a question, is a good question. And honestly, I wish I would have talked to the fire department about that. And I will do that. Maybe I'll shoot them an email this week, thinking through it logically. Oh, I guess they would have to use the elevator to get down to the floor unless they had other people to assist them in getting down. Well, you're shaking your head no, but if they're solo, they've got no choice. You would need someone to assist them in getting out of the building. So
If they're the only person on the
right.
floor.
So you want to hit Andy's?
Yes, thank you.
Right, and if you go to the courthouse, you see the mats that we've had to install on the walls
Right.
For people to assist somebody down. But if they're up here alone, in any of these floors, which I can't, when would that happen, that they're completely alone? Well, this floor is pretty much empty, so, there's nobody here.
Right.
So they're almost alone here, but I will say it is something that we should address. I think we're gonna be installing, we had talked about it, transition plan. Part of this building's transition plan is to install all of those transport mats, because they have to be taken down the stairs, assisted. So it's a legitimate question, and we have to address it.
No, agreed. Good question. Thank you.
Any other questions for Wes?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay,
Long-term contract, no cut.
that's right. Lifetime. Okay, next up is Mr. Duval. Are you going to come up and join us?
Yes,
Yeah.
same way with Kevin. Same way with Kevin. No.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Sinuses, but other than that,
Sorry.
I'll keep it somewhat brief. What we're doing or acknowledging in this committee, Andy wanted me to bring it is, it's time for an upgrade of the county's phone system. And what we're going to end up doing is going out for an RFP. Most of what is going to go on will be internally, but because of the scope of what we're going to do, it's large enough that it's required to go off for an RFP. Basically what we're doing is, for the majority of the time, the county's phone system was centralized, but 10, 12 years ago, it became decentralized because there were needs for certain departments to have upgrades, but there was, as some of you that were here, there was no money.
Right.
So to allow those departments to move forward without having to wait on something, it was allowed that per department, if you had funds in your department, they allowed you to go ahead and upgrade your department. It's not what they wanted to do, it's just you couldn't hold back major departments who needed improvements. What that built was a decentralized phone system. Now that the county's doing much better and there are ARPA funds available, we're going to bring them back into a centralized system. It'll help you control cost. It'll make it easier for every department. They won't have to use their specific funds for things that used to be something that came out of administration or the county board anyway. So in short, what we're going to do is centralize it. That would include the courthouse, the annex, and this building. Why I'm the one presenting it is it's going to go back to, the control of those are going to go back to the departments that used to control it. So it'll be my department, the IT department, the finance department for billing, and contracts will be the 5th floor. As you would guess, the county board that need to execute things will work together on that. It's kind of what goes on now. There's a small part that if somebody does something, they would contact Wes existing right now. That didn't used to be. It'll go back to where they'll call my department.
Okay, that makes sense.
When you're upgrading the phone system, what we're doing is we're moving it to a modern system, which is a network system. What I've spent time, we knew this was coming up. We just need to make sure we were ready for it. We had, as you know, there's a bunch of other projects going on, and we needed some of those to calm down before we moved into this next thing. Now that that's there, during the last 6 months, I built a network specifically for this phone network. It's been tested. I've operated a modern system on it to make sure it can communicate in all the buildings, and that's in existence. Wow. So what all we need to do now is go out for an RFP, let people bid on it. Then at that point, we'll accept the bid, and it'll go back to that internal thing. So like, I don't come to every computer upgrade that you need to do. You won't need to do it at that point.
That's wonderful.
But we're just letting you know. Well, probably in the next few months that RFP will go up. We're just letting you know at this time that the process is going to begin. And I'm here if you have any questions for that. I don't know if there's anything specific.
Mr. Chairman.
Just, I guess the first thing is normally Building and Grounds would, bid stuff out. We release the bid. Kevin's committee is executive. So rather than make him come to 2 committees, are we okay with that, first of all, as long as we buy into the project here? Is it okay to run the bids and release them out of that committee and finance evaluate? So that was one question. And then the other thing for Kevin would be, we had talked about the hardwired lines and the change in the new standard upcoming, that we're gonna have to do a lot of this stuff anyway down the road, but now it's going to be a cost savings measure on those lines as well, the stuff that Steve maintains. Can you speak on any of the standard that's upcoming in the future, that we're going to have to change phones anyway down the road?
Yes, one of the reasons we're doing this is our existing phone system works right now, but it's at the end of life. So you can't get parts for it. You can't upgrade the existing phones. And honestly, you just really shouldn't operate on something as crucial as your phone system on something that you can't get parts for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're moving to a modern system, which is a network system. That'll be more what Andy's talking about. That's where I was talking about. We built a network for that. There'll be some cost savings, but I really want you to more think about it. It's time. You have to do it. We've wanted to do this for 10, 12, 15 years. Andy and I have had the conversation several times, but until the county has improved its finances, we just couldn't justify the cost. Mm-hmm. Now that you can, and we have ARPA funds that'll cover a good portion of the one-time cost, which it's that one-time cost to switch over that really jumps it up. Now, when I say jump it up, you guys just talked about $4 million. So it's not on that scale. But when we were ultimately kind of broke for $100,000, $150,000 was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah. So once we move on to the new system, your operating costs will be about the same, maybe a little bit more, but the existing system, you have to move on to that new system. It's time. You just cannot keep going on. And in fact, we had the benefit of the, I don't know if analogy is great, is you're operating a 15-year-old truck, and that worked great. And then you can't get the parts for it. Mm-hmm. Well, now you've got to move on to that new truck. Well, that truck costs way more than it did when you bought it 10 or 15. I mean, you buy an F-150 now, you just go look at it, you know, your head spins at that time. Well, that's the cost that we were always having to be concerned. We have a means to pay for that right now. Once you get that over, your costs will be slightly higher, but it's really the additional functionality and the possibilities you can do, that in the long run, it'll be cheaper. I don't know if that's really going to your point.
Well, right now we have to dial whole phone numbers to get over to the courthouse. Will that go away? Will we be able to do extension dialing, the 4 digits? Yeah. Yes,
you can do that. It's just with the modern systems that you're used to doing with your phones, or you could do it at your house. We haven't been able to do that. I want to stress is we need to do this, but yes, all that'll be possible. Other things, with your existing system, or our existing system, we have to call the vendor if we move John Smith from this room to that room, because it's hardwired in that plug, and you got to call on that server. Once we go into a network system, you just pick up the phone, move it to 4 floors away. You don't have to switch anything. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a savings per time you do that, and that happens more than you think it would be. The one thing that we have had to wait for is we need to know what the final, or there never is a final, as much as you can guess, the final configuration in the courthouse is going to be, because when we put out an RFP, we need to say ultimately how many users there are going to be, how many handsets, because you got to be fair to the vendor, because they're going to give you a price based on how many you say you need to do. You can't say there's 50 when there's 300, or you can't say there's 300 when there's 50. Obviously, you would bid that different based on how much work you're going to be providing them. I've got most of that information together. We've been discussing this for quite some time. We were just waiting to see when it was time. It's time now. You really want to do it before you have your deadline for the ARPA fund, so you don't have any money coming out of the funds for that one-time hit.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that.
I have a question. Well, like if the electricity goes off, will it affect the phone system?
Well, we have, not in this building, because we have but that has less to do with the phone system. In this building, in the annex, there are generators.
Okay.
The courthouse doesn't have a generator, but if you lose electricity in the courthouse, you lose lights, computers, everything anyway. But we always have a generator in this in the annex, so it's never really an issue for us.
Okay.
The other issue is our old system is not a system you want to be on anymore, and it's a combination of that old digital system, which, while was more modern than what we used to be, we still have some of the original pot lines, and those need to go away. In fact, ATT is not really giving you a choice. They went from being the cheapest lines you can have to the most expensive lines you can, so we're paying a premium to maintain something you don't want to be on in the first place. So.
Okay. Absolutely.
So I don't know if you have any questions about it. We're just notifying that we're going to upgrade the system. You're going to see an RFP come out. So the sheriff's department did this a couple of years ago. They're their standalone campus, so they can do what they want and they pay for it. 911 just did it a few months ago. When VAC moved, they went to this type of system, and the highway department has been on the system. So there are plenty of local vendors. It'll go out to everybody, but we have existing vendors that we have confidence that I'm sure they'll bid on. I'll probably end up going with somebody we know, but we don't know. We'll wait to see what the bids come in. What is very important now, this is the first time that a phone system will operate on a secure network. On our network. That's why it has to be through our department. This is on the same network. While we built them out, they're on the same switches and lines that the courthouse system is, the financial system, so it has to be controlled just like you would do anything else.
Excellent. What's the timeline? When do you expect to have this completed?
The actual happenstance, the actual movement or physical thing to move it over doesn't take that long. For the county, it will be a little bit longer. They've got to do one department at a time, because we have, as a county, especially the courthouse, you have documents, you have brochures out that say what the contact numbers, emergency numbers are. Well, you can't just, the easiest way to do that is to get all new numbers. You can be done in a few weeks. You can't do that in a government. You've provided out to the public what these key numbers are. So while the vendor you go with could do it relatively quick, a lot of it's out of your control. You're going to wait for AT&T to switch your number over, and you need to make sure that's a seamless move as possible, so the public still has access to you. So I can't tell you exactly what that'd be, but it's not a hard process. Companies have done this over the years. It's a new system. It's what we need to go to, but it's been the industry standard for at least a decade now. So it's something we need to, if we could have afforded to do it before, we would have done it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mr. Chairman.
Is it safe to say a timeline, like if we bid it in the fall, awarded it, it could be done over the winter?
I would hope it'd be much quicker than that.
I'm trying to manage expectations. It's like a 3 or 4 month project end to end.
Yes.
Okay.
To physically do it takes almost no time. Waiting for AT&T, it's like dealing with AT&T or Comcast, as you can guess. You don't really, you don't control that. The vendor won't be the problem. The county won't be the problem. It'll be, and honestly, it's been done so much, it'll probably go smoother than I just don't want to overestimate how fast, but it will not be a problem. It's a common thing. It happens all the time.
Right. Yeah. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Duval? Mr. Hunter, are you wiggling your fingers at me?
It's a comment, really. Thank you, Madam Chair. Is, you know, what I like about you department heads is, you know, you and Wes and so forth, and you know, we pose questions, and you're like teachers, and we learn a lot, you know, from the questions we pose and the information you provide. And I really do appreciate, you know, the methodology in which you guys provide specificity. I mean, it was not just, you know, paying bills and we move on. I mean, there's specificity that you provide, what's going to happen, what you anticipate, what we have now, why we have to do it, etc. I mean, I really appreciate the excellent job that you guys do in terms of explaining. And you know, when Wes comes up here and talks about all the different stuff, I mean, there, you know, a lot of questions we would have, you know, he addresses those in terms of specificity, the problems, the future, what we have to do, lifetime upgrades, the stuff that you guys do. I mean, it seems like you guys just do it in your sleep, and it's kind of rote when you guys come here and provide the information. I just want to say thank you. I mean, thank God we got you guys. That's why I don't. Some people may say I'm doing it in a jocular manner, but really, you guys know long-term, no-cut contracts. I mean, you guys know what you're doing, and 107,000 people in the county should feel comfortable with having people like you at the helm. Really.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We appreciate when we have board members to say that. We get compliments, and it does mean something to us when we hear you say that. So thank you.
Definitely echo Mr. Hunter's feelings there. You are appreciated, very much so.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, look at the right agenda. So do we have any other business to discuss this morning? Any other business? Okay, then I am looking at Mr. Smith. Okay, we have a motion. I need a second to adjourn the meeting, and that would be Ms. Amanda Earps. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. Aye. I hear no oppositions. Meeting adjourned.